My name is Andreas Deja. I'm an animator. I worked for Disney Studios for 30 years. And after that, I decided to produce my own film, which I just showed here at the View Conference. It's an almost half-hour film, and it's called Mushka, and the story is about a little girl who's raising a Siberian tiger.
How did you start your career in animation?
Well, I got involved in animation at a young age, or I got fascinated by it when I was about 10, 11 years old, because I grew up in Germany and went to school there. And so my first Disney movie was The Jungle Book, and it changed my life. I was determined one day I was going to do this. And of course your family doesn't take you seriously, and my sisters thought I was crazy. But then you kind of keep thinking about it, and I wrote a letter to Disney Studios in Los Angeles with some questions, and they wrote me back and gave me advice to become an artist and go to art school and learn how to draw animals and people. So I took all that really seriously, and then I went to art school in Germany as well for 4 years. But then I applied when I was almost finished and wrote another letter to the studio, and then with some work sample, some drawings. And they said, yeah, come on in. We have a training program, so we'll take you into the training program and see how you do. So I passed the training program and stayed 30 years.
How has animation evolved at Disney over the years?
Technology. It started actually to change a little bit early on when I was there, because I don't know if you are familiar with how these drawings are being handled. We draw on paper first, and then they're being transferred, those drawings, onto celluloid sheets, we call them cells, and then hand painted on the other side, and then photographed. So that was still happening on The Little Mermaid, for example. But after The Little Mermaid, we didn't do that anymore. So we would still draw on paper, but then the drawings would be scanned into the computer, and then we could do all the color of the characters and all that on the computer. So there was a big change, but it didn't affect my work because I was still drawing on paper. And then, of course, the big change came years later when computer animation was started by Pixar, because that's a whole other way of working. And these guys, of course, did really well, as we all know, did wonderful films. But my thing was always drawing and being an artist, and I wanted to stay with drawing, and so that's why I created my own film.
What was the most difficult character you worked on?
The most difficult characters I ever animated was Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, and the reason for that is because he had to be handled realistically. He's not a cartoon character. He had to be as real as Belle. So I just had to be extra careful with what kind of expressions I use. If I make him too crazy, too cartoony, then people don't believe him anymore. If I do him too much like a real person, it looks boring. So you have to kind of take a little bit from both, and that was difficult. But in the end, it was rewarding because I think he played a really important role in that film, and me and my team did the best we could with the character.
And Gaston not only speaks, but also sings.
Yeah, most of these early movies, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, they were musicals, and so he had a big drinking song in the pub, and even danced around the pub. So those are fun assignments to do. You know.
What's it like going from a big studio like Disney to an independent production like Mushka?
It's very different, but what really helped me was that while I was at Disney, I got to know all the departments, and I knew what they were doing. I was not involved in working with actors and recording the voices. I was not involved with sound mixing. I was not involved with background painting, but I knew how it worked. I knew how all this stuff was put together into one film. And so it really helped me to be on my own, and it also told me how to get started with a storyboard, or even with a screenwriter. So I knew the steps. I just hadn't done all of that myself. That was first. So you find yourself, you're not just animating, you're involved in every step of making the movie, every single thing you are really involved with, and that was fun.
How did the idea of creating Mushka come about?
Well, I always enjoyed drawing animals. It started when I was a kid and I saw the Jungle Book and I wrote to Disney and they said, give me some advice. And they did give me some advice. They said, you have to learn how to draw animals. You have to know the bones and how they turn and move. And the only way to learn that is by watching them and drawing them at the zoo and all that. So I got really into that and really enjoyed it. So for my first project that I would do alone, it'd have to have an animal in it. And tigers are my favorite animal, or one of my favorite animals. And I thought, what if I have a tiger and a girl? Because that's really unusual. And create a story around that. So that's how it started.
What message do you want to convey with Mushka?
Well, a couple of things. I want to remind people that the art of moving drawings is not gone. It's still here. It's still valuable. It still can entertain people. It can still make you feel something as an audience member. And the other thing, I would like to encourage students to do their own personal film. It doesn't have to be half an hour long. You know, it can be a 2 or 3 minute project because it's not that expensive. It's actually cheap. It's only your own time and your own talent. If you apply that to your project, it won't be too expensive. And nowadays, with the help of the computer, you can do that. You know, so there's no excuse not to do your own project anymore.
Mushka has a very hand-drawn style. Is this message the reason for this style?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the Jungle Book was my first Disney film. And in that film, quite a few scenes were also handled very loose. Not as much as 101 Dalmatians, but still there were quite a few loose scenes, black outlines of the characters only, very loose. And I grew up with the films from the 60s and 70s, 101 Dalmatians, Robin Hood, The Aristocats, Sword in the Stone. Then they were all in that style. And when I was at Disney all those years, we never did that style. We always did very clean drawings. Our assistants would trace our drawings very clean, and that was the final look. And it was beautiful, but I wanted to go back to something where my own drawings are on the screen. And they would be loose and vibrant, and that's why I decided to do it that way.
What was the process of creating the music?
Well, originally I don't think I was going to have music. I was going to have a score, but not a song or anything like that. And then it just so happened that I had lunch maybe 12 years ago with somebody who really is a Disney legend. And him and his brother, this is Richard Sherman, and him and his brother wrote the songs to the Jungle Book, except for one, but most of the songs. And then they also wrote the songs for Mary Poppins in the 60s and won an Oscar for it. And I just was lucky enough, I had become friends with him. And he asked me all those years ago what I was doing at the time. And I said, I think I'm going to do my own film. And he said, well, what's the film going to be about? Mm-hmm. So I told him the story roughly about this girl and the tiger. And he got kind of fascinated by it. And he said, well, maybe somebody here at this table can write a song. And I couldn't believe what I heard. And he just offered. And he did. He wrote this beautiful song and this musical theme that's going throughout the whole score. It kind of comes and goes. But he gave us this beautiful musical gift.
What is your personal definition of animation?
My personal definition of animation is bringing something to life. Something that you bring to life, that didn't live before, but you do it through your mind and your creativity. And one of the old animators, Mark Davis, who created Cruella de Vil and Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, he told me one time, he said, he was quite old then, he said, when you worked for Walt Disney, you were asked to bring something to life. And that's a tall order, meaning that's not easy to do if you want to please Walt Disney. And I always remembered that. It really, it's bringing something to life.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.